Lesson 2.7, percent of change. This lesson actually involves a lot more than percent of change. It talks about some other issues as far as percentages, talking about tax and markup and things like that. So we're going to try to do things in the most effective and concise way so that you're not doing a bunch of steps to do these problems. Our objective is to find the percent of change and solve problems involving percent of change. It's standard A1.9.1. The steps for percent of change. So percent of change, you always have an amount of something and then a new amount of something. So an original amount and a new amount. So something that happens previously and then they've checked it later. Like enrollment of a school, what it was last year compared to this year. Tuition for a particular college from when it opened till what it was this year or something like that. There's always an original amount, whatever came first, and a new amount. What I want you to do is the first thing is to subtract the bigger of the two. Now that doesn't mean whether it's got to be the first one or the new one. It's the biggest one minus the smallest one is what I want you to do. When you get that difference, I want you to take the difference divided by the original, whichever one came first, okay, because you're finding the percentage out of that amount. Then you multiply by 100, that's how you get percent. Percent literally means per 100, and you write that percentage as an increase or decrease. So let's look at our first example. The original amount is 32 on a particular particular thing, and it went to a new amount of 40. So if I follow those three steps, the first thing I would do would be take the biggest amount, 40, and subtract 32, which means the actual difference is 8. Now I would take, in the next step, 8 divided by 32. That was the original one. 8 divided by 32, and you get 0.25. When I take that times 100, I would get 25%. Also, it went from 32 to 40, so it went up. I'm going to put an I for increase. A lot of times percent of change is a whole percent. You don't put decimal amounts. If your assignment doesn't say round to the nearest tenth, then I want you to round it to the nearest whole percent. So this percent of change would be a 25% increase. Questions about that? Okay, we're going to talk about markups here. Example B, the price of a used book was $5 for the store to purchase. They charged a 28% markup. What is the price they now charge? Okay, I'm going to show you two methods on this. Okay, two methods on this. So method one. Method one, it's a $5 book. Okay, so when stores have to buy something, they have a cost to them. They decide what profit or percentage that they want as a markup. They take that percentage and add it on to the cost that they paid, and that's what they charge the customer. Now, out of that percentage, may not all be profit. They might have to pay for their employees, pay for their utilities, pay for their building, things like that. But they've got to decide what percentage they need to start making money. So first of all, what I would do in method one would be 28% or 0.28 times the $5. That gives me a 1.4, which really means $1.40. That's their amount of markup. So you would take 5 plus the $1.40, and what they would charge would be $6.40. That's their amount of markup. That's method one. And that's probably the way that if you had to do this problem on your own before I talked about it too much, that's probably what you would have done. Now, method two is a little bit more concise and maybe more effective if you can do this kind of stuff in your head. So, first of all, the price that they paid of the book, that was 100%. That's 100% of what they paid and the 100% of the original price. But they want to add 28% to that. So 100% plus 28%, they're going to charge the customer a total of 128%. Does that make sense? Okay. So instead of taking 0.28 times the 5, you would take 1.28 times the 5. And what's going to happen with that is it's going to give you 6.4 right there in one multiplication. So that's a lot slicker and a lot quicker. So $6.40. You get the same answer either way. It's just which method you prefer. I prefer the second way. You're going to pay 100% of what you paid. Plus you're going to charge 28% more. So you need 128% of that $5, $6.40. Doing it all at once. Questions about that? Okay, let's look at example C. A meal at the Olive Garden was $42.50 for two. Tax is 7% in Indiana. Find the total cost. Once again, I'm going to do two methods for you. Method 1 would be what you would do probably if you had to do it on your own. How you probably were first taught about tax. So 7% of tax on the $42.50. So you would take 7%, in other words, 0.07 times $42.50. That would give you $2.98. That's how much tax would be on $42.50. Then you would take $42.50 and add the $2.98. So your total bill would be $45.48. And there's nothing wrong with that method. It's just I prefer this method, method 2. And I hope you understand it. Let's see what happens. So you realize that the $42.50, that's 100% of the bill, correct? Plus 7% for tax. If I add that together, I am really going to pay 107%. Does that make sense to you? So that means instead of taking 0.07, I'm going to take 1.07 times the $42.50. And when you do that, you get directly the final cost, $45.48. You're going to get the same answer both ways. Method 2 is going to be a lot shorter. Of course, the 100 plus 7% you're going to do in your head. So 107%. Question?
Do you do both method 1 and method 2?
No, you get a pick. You don't do both. You pick which method you like best. Okay, you're only doing one of them. All right, other questions? All right, one last problem here. We've got a discount, which is always good. Everybody likes discounts. A dog toy is marked 20% off. If it was originally $3.80, what is the sale price? So I'm going to do both methods again. Method 1. Method 1, before I would have talked, this is what most of you would have done. You'd have said, okay, I need to figure out what that 20% is. So 20% times $3.80. That gives you 76 cents. And since it's a discount, it's the amount that you mark off the price. So you would say $3.80 minus 76 cents, which would be $3.04 now with the 20% off. But method 2. Method 2. Okay, the $3.80 is 100%. We are taking 20% off of that. So minus 20% off of that, what percentage will we be paying? 80. So go ahead just directly and do 80% of the 380. And by doing that, right off the bat, you get 304. Okay, again, I don't care which method you use, whichever one you want, whichever one you feel like you're going to get the answers right, you're most secure with. Method 1 and every one would have been what you would have done when you first dealt with percentages. Method 2 is more along the lines of higher math and higher thinking. So if you can get to method 2, that would be great.